Well, good afternoon, folks. Aaron Dorr here with Jared Taylor with the Missouri Firearms Coalition, the big weekend update for gun owners. Jared, it's been a big week. We've got a lot going on in Jeff City, a lot going on at the national level as well as we try to expand our gun rights here in Missouri, but also stop, federal attacks on our freedoms. The big push that we're making right now this session is a bill that you actually wrote the first time for us a year or two ago, which is to enhance stand your ground law. And so, guys, we're going to discuss that bill for you today. A lot of you are hearing objections from legislators, which are absolutely, patently not true. And we're going to break down the objections for you guys and show you guys actual language from the bill in detail. But kind of at the macro level here, Jared, and the problem we have, I just want to stop 1 second once in case people don't know yet. Jared, you are former Representative Jared Taylor, but now you're on the Missouri Firearms Coalition team helping us fight for gun rights in a different capacity. We're happy as heck to have you on board, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited to continue the fight on Second Amendment rights here in Missouri. I'm a recovering politician, is how I've been describing myself. So trying to figure out what life is like after being a politician I'll tell you, it's really nice.
Yeah.
So it's great not having to go to Jeff City every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if all of them have to recover from passing as many pro-gun bills as you did, that'd be a great thing for us here in Missouri. But again, happy to have you on the team. And for all the politicians who are happy to see you leave, I'm just so happy to tell them in the Capitol that you're on the team and watch their face kind of just go ashen. So anyway, we all know that here in Missouri, we have stand your ground law on the books. We passed it back in 2016. You were involved in that fight. It was an amendment on constitutional carry. And so we have removed the requirement to retreat. We accomplished that, and that was good.
Right.
What we're seeing, though, is that we didn't do enough, and that Missouri hasn't done enough yet to deal with, looking ahead and seeing how can a malicious prosecutor like Kim Gardner use the law to attack gun owners. And the bill that you filed for us a year or two ago that we're doing again this session, what it does is kind of a big deal, but it should be pretty common sense. We're saying that right now in Missouri, if you let alone fire your firearm in a self-defense situation, you are automatically presumed guilty. And then we have to prove our innocence in a court of law. The problem with that is that gives almost all of the cards to the county prosecutor. That's a real problem here.
Yeah. We've seen a out of control prosecutor in Kim Gardner in St. Louis, who goes after law abiding citizens. And what we're trying to do is we're going to say, look, all we're doing is asserting this idea that we've stood upon in the United States, that you're innocent until proven guilty. And look, you have to prove that we're guilty of more than what we're allowed under law, that we did something illegal in defending ourselves, right? And so this bill it's pretty simple. I mean, it expounds upon this idea that we're innocent until proven guilty. And so that's all we're trying to do, and we're getting pushback. We're getting people saying that that we're going too far. That we've heard for years and years that this bill or that bills that we're doing in Jeff City are, well, we're going to make the wild, wild west, and you're going to have shootouts in the streets and all of these crazy things. And we've not seen that yet. What we've seen is terrible prosecutors in St. Louis not doing their job and not prosecuting criminals and going after the good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, let us know where you're watching from in the comment section. Post your location in the comment section. The more comments we get, the more views the video gets. We're trying to always fight against Zuckerberg's algorithms. So I see Jimmy Pellis. Comment again, Jimmy. Jim, where are you watching from? Jay Salazar. We got Steve, Angela, Gordon, Kevin, George, John, Danny. Guys, let us know where you're watching from. Any questions you have, post those in the comment section as well. So number one, Jared, we're going to invert the current presumption of guilt. And we're going to say we are presumed innocent unless we're proven guilty in a court of law. And that's a big one. And what the thing is that it's not new. It's just new here. We have, I think, 17 states now that have already done this. And it's not just Red America. You've got California on that list as well, where they have given a presumption of innocence, and it forces the government to prove your guilt in a court of law. If that's all this bill did, it'd be a major advancement for freedom here in Missouri. But also, the other problem we have right now is a current stand your ground law can only really be invoked on an appeal. And
Mhm.
ask Mark McCloskey, right? He could only assert that after his life had been trashed by Kim Gardner. And so that's a real problem. At this point, you're a convicted killer or attempted murderer or whatever you've been charged with. You're convicted of a crime. Your entire neighborhood thinks you're a monster. You're probably in prison right now. You're broke. You probably lost your marriage. I was hanging on by a thread. Your life is a country song. And
Right.
only now can you invoke a stand your ground law on an appeal. This
Right.
bill would change all that also and says you can have a pre-trial hearing. And so if you've got evidence that makes it very clear your actions were lawful, your lawyer can say, Your Honor, we shouldn't be here. Here's the reason why my client shot this person. We admit that the action was justifiable and we should be immune from charges. That's also a major purpose of this bill.
Yeah, that's right. And be able to utilize this the idea that it was justified, that we don't have to present this, wait to present this until we go to court, is a game changer for law abiding citizens. Because, like you said, most of us are probably going to be in prison if they're claiming that it wasn't justified. If we have to wait until we go to court to present this evidence or to claim this right now,
Right.
we're going to be having to either we're going to be poor because we won't have the money to get a good lawyer or to get a good attorney to defend us. But you're going to be in prison for who knows how long, for 30, 90, 120 days or whatever it's going to be, or until your court case starts, your criminal court case starts, which is going to be years from now.
Right.
And so being able to do this prior to going to criminal court is a huge game changer. It's going to make the difference for gun owners.
I think everyone's happy to see Kyle Rittenhouse walk free. Everyone is, but what your point is well taken. The kid spent like 85 or 90 days in jail, despite the fact that he committed no crime. And some people might say, "Well, that's just no big deal. It was a high-profile deal. At least he got out of prison." Yeah, but tell that to Kyle.
Right.
Because we've met Kyle. Our team has met Kyle. The kid has deep scars in his life from spending 3 months locked in a cage like an animal, knowing in his heart he did nothing wrong. And that should not be the case. There should not be where someone is arrested just because, where someone's held just because, especially in cases where we know the person did nothing wrong. So
Right.
Step number 2 is to give that pre-trial immunity hearing, which we need very, very badly. Step number 3, Jared, deals with the threatened use of force. We kind of cover that right now in the code, but the brandishing section covers that. But the assault section is where Kim Gardner got Mark McCloskey. And it's an assault to display a firearm at somebody here in Missouri. And unfortunately, there's no carve out for a justifiable assault, let's call it. And we're going to fix that as well in the bill. And then finally, it seems kind of elemental, but one of the big parts of the bill is a requirement that there be probable cause that you broke the law before you are arrested. And I want you to kind of explain this to people, how it works right now, because so often people are arrested just because. If you've watched the old murder show Matlock when I was a kid or anything else, Law and Order, you see them, they get taken downtown, whatever that means, and they sweat you in an interrogation room. And whatever you say there will be used against you in a court of law. And that can be very damaging to innocent gun owners.
Right. Especially if that you haven't done anything wrong, but you slip up, you say something, you say, "I'm so sorry." Like, well, then it makes it look like you're guilty. And so what we do on here is we say, look, you are presumed, or there's a reasonableness to presume that you are innocent. And law enforcement, they can do their normal everyday
Investigation.
Investigations, right, to determine whether or not you're guilty. But they can't just assume that guilty. They can't just walk up to a crime scene and immediately arrest you that you've done something wrong because there's someone that's been shot.
Right.
That's what happens right now. They assume that you're guilty. And so what this does is it flips that. It says, no, we're going to assume that you're innocent, and we have to do our jobs as law enforcement to figure out what happened here.
Yeah, exactly. And again, guys, this is not new. It's only new here in Missouri. 17 states I had that list here somewhere, but 17 states have done it. red states, blue states, East Coast, left coast, Midwest, rich states, poor states, big states, small states, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a novel idea for anybody that we want people to be presumed innocent until we're actually proven guilty in a court of law. So guys, the bill numbers on this, I think Jimmy was asking, HB 486. This is being sponsored by Representative Ben Baker. This is Ben right there. Ben is the lead sponsor on this in the House. In the Senate, you'll recognize this name. Rick Bratton is leading the fight for this. Rick is leading the fight for most expansions of gun rights here in Missouri today. He is 100% pro-gun. Both these guys are. They're working hard on this bill. The real need we have right now is for these guys to hear from you, not those two guys, but your rep, your senator has to hear from you guys today. We've had some big meetings in the last couple of days, Jared. I was there most of the week in Jeff City and met with very powerful members of the chambers and some of the freshman members too. And we're hearing some criticism of the bill. Now that's a surprise, right? We have politicians who don't want to jump on a major gun bill. I want to ask you about some of these objections because you heard these when you were in office as well.
Right.
And the first one of this is that kind of a conceptual idea, which is that this makes it harder on law enforcement to do their job. We've heard this from all the law enforcement lobby, and these guys have gone so far in their delusions of grandeur as to label this bill the Make Murder Legal bill again here in Missouri, even though, again, almost 20 states have already done this. How do you respond to this allegation that we're going to make it harder for cops to do their job prosecuting homicides here in Missouri?
Yeah, it's not. They've got to do their job. They roll up on a scene and they've got to figure out what happened. They do that now. But the difference is we're going to be able, they have to assume that you're innocent and they have to figure out what happened and actually, do their investigation and figure out what happened. This doesn't make it harder. It doesn't make it easier. It just changes it to where they have to figure out what's going on. The other thing too that I want to point out is law enforcement, in order to arrest you, they just have to use reasonable suspicion, and that's a really low standard.
Yes.
In order to figure out. So if they think that you did something wrong, then they can still do their job. They can still arrest. If they think that your story doesn't match up with what the facts of the case, what they have in front of them, well, then absolutely they can still do that. The other thing too, that we're hearing is law enforcement. Well, what happens if you shoot a law enforcement officer? I mean, we've heard that a couple times. We specifically put in the bill that there are exemptions. Like, look, if you shoot a law enforcement officer,
right there, Jared, top paragraph, right?
Yeah,
there.
Top paragraph. That is that's an exemption that this does not apply in that situation, because it was a law enforcement officer doing their job. And so this isn't gonna allow individuals to shoot cops. Like, that's not what this bill does.
Exactly.
We
on this whole question about, is it making it harder for cops? I just want to, this is page 3 of the bill, guys. This is HB 486, SB 43, top paragraph right there. This does not apply if someone shoots a cop who if you know or should know that they're a law enforcement officer. Very obvious right here. And I'm just going to be honest. There are members in the House right now who either A, cannot read, or B, have not read, because they're asking us these questions in pretty hostile meetings this week saying, you're going to let people shoot and kill cops. Absolutely wrong. What a fool to think so. And frankly, what an insult. MOFC has been leading the fight for gun rights and for freedom in Missouri for a long freaking time. And we only write bills that are good for law enforcement, but most importantly, good for freedom. This bill does both. We're proud of that. But I asked the other question, Jared, as right here on line 15, as you were saying, law enforcement may use a standard procedure to investigate the use of crimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they may not make an arrest unless there's probable cause the force was unlawful. So it's right here in black and white. They can still do their job. They must still do. We want them to do their job.
Absolutely.
Just simply make sure there's an evidentiary threshold, a small one, before we arrest somebody in the wake of a self-defense shooting. So that's kind of objection number 1 I want you to kind of deal with. We're also hearing, though, from some people who are a little more nuanced. They're saying that you guys make a probable cause threshold in the bill prior to an arrest. And they're right, and we do, and we're proud of that. Right here on line 18, that the person shall not be arrested unless there's probable cause that the force that was used was unlawful, or that was threatened to be used was unlawful. Probable cause is, as you said, perhaps the lowest bar possible. If there's any type of evidence, witness statements, other evidence from, camera, surveillance, forensic, anything else they can find, you can be arrested. And what we've heard from some people is that it's already in the Constitution, that the idea of having to have this added to the state code is duplicitous. And so you guys are making more work for us than you have to make. I don't think we see it that way. What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, great. It's in the Constitution, but that's not what's actually happening on the streets. We've got to put this in statute, so we know that our law enforcement is abiding by this. There is a presumption of innocence, and that there has to be probable cause in order to arrest an individual. I mean, yeah, great. It's in the Constitution, but it's not in effect. Like there's no statute that actually inserts that into the law.
Well, my response is always kind of a variation of, it's in the Second Amendment as well. It can't be infringed. And our gun rights are being infringed all over America right now by out of control politicians. So with all due respect, that doesn't count for anything. It has to be. That's the whole point of a state legislature, is to codify our rights, codify our freedoms. We have the Constitution. Now we're going to pass laws so we know how to live our lives, and so we can prosecute bad guys. If it's not in the law, it's very hard to claim that protection. So to me, it was kind of an absurd concern, but I wanted to make sure I got your take on that. The big one, though, the big one is always that we're going to make murder legal. We're going to make murder legal with this bill. So guys, I'm going to show you the entire bill right now very briefly, so you guys know, if you look it up online, what is current code, what is new code, and we'll show you exactly how to answer somebody who says we're going to make murder legal. Again, this is SB 43 in the Senate and HB 486 in the House. We're going to show the House version right here. This is page 1. Everything you see here is existing code. We're not changing anything here in page 1. This is our current justifiable use of force statute, and it's not going to change in any capacity. That's page 1. This is page 2. Everything on the top down to line 39 is existing code. And frankly, so is down to line 45, the first 3 words. And as you can see right there on line 40, that begins currently where it requires us to prove our innocence. You can read it right there. It says, the defendant shall have the burden of injecting the issue of justification under this section. In other words, you're guilty until you prove your innocence here in a court of law. So we're going to gut that provision on lines 40 through the first 3 words of line 45. And that begins our new code section. There shall be a presumption of reasonableness under this section. And it goes on from there, that we are innocent until proven guilty. That's the bottom of page 2. Now, Jared,
can I say something there?
Yes, please.
But it's really important on this bill, because now you get to insert that in a pretrial hearing.
Bingo.
So before you had to wait to go to court. And again, who knows how long that's going to be? It could be 2 years down the road. This allows you to do it in a pretrial hearing, which could happen within 30 days or whatever. So it's really important that this gets put into statute, so you can assert this immediately rather than having to wait for your criminal hearing.
Exactly. Now, the big question, the drum roll. I wish I had some drums. I've been doing a drum roll right now. The big question, does this make murder legal? And the answer is found right here, folks, on the bottom of this page. Would be line 49, or actually it's line 1 on the bottom of the page. Jared, walk us through this section here. How does this answer the question of if we're going to make murder legal or not?
Yeah, so this section is the kind of the one talking about justified and not justified, right? And so it says a person who uses or threatens to use the force is justified and is immune from criminal prosecution. But then it goes down further again, like we talked about earlier. But it allows law enforcement to do their due diligence, do their investigation, and then once probable cause is discovered that there wasn't, a justified use of force, then they can arrest you, they can prosecute you, and And if there was, then it'll go before a court to make that determination. This does not allow anyone to make murder legal. Like it
Exactly.
is the most absurd thing when that happened. When I think there was a representative in the hearing last year, and actually I think the Missouri Sheriff's Association, if I remember right, kind of
Yeah.
alluded to this
Yeah.
idea
Yeah. Yep.
in the hearing, and it's just the most absurd. Like it caught me so off guard because it's so ignorant. It's like it was
Right.
just so stupid. And I just didn't even know what to say at first, but this bill does not allow that. I mean, clearly,
I think one of the key arguments on that, to your point here, Jared, is found right here on line. It'd be considered line 1 on the very bottom. A person who uses or threatens to use force pursuant. Here's the key words: pursuant to section 563.031 is justified. Well, what is that section? That is on page 1. This is our current use of force laws. So we are tying this to existing code. In other words, if you use justifiable force as defined in the code, not defined by me, not defined by you, Jared, or anybody else, as defined by the code, then you are immune from prosecution. You should be. If you didn't break the law, you should not be prosecuted. It's a novel idea, I know. And so, guys, it's right there in black and white at the bottom of page 2. Frankly, Jared, I don't spend this much time normally defending our actions in policy because we know exactly what our bills do. We write them to exacting standards. At the end of the day, I'll give people a moment to ask a dumb question. But for the most part, these are cop-outs for politicians, not sincere questions. So, guys, if you're being asked this by a politician in your local neighborhood at a forum or at breakfast in a diner someday or at church on Sunday, just make sure and tell them these questions are absurd. Anybody who can read at a kindergarten level can know your questions are absurd.
Well, and we could point to other states. We could point to these 17 other states that already have this codified in law. We're not doing anything that's unreasonable. These other states don't allow murder that's not legal in these other states.
Exactly.
That is not what we're doing. But what I'm going to say, something that you typically have said on this legislation, is this protects not only individuals in Springfield, Missouri, and white soccer moms in St. Louis, but it also protects Black Democrats in the inner city St. Louis if they have to, justifiably use force against someone else.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of a novel thing. People are like, does this really protect everybody equally? Well, it's almost like we actually care about justice for everybody, Jared. It's almost like we do bills and we pass laws that benefit everybody. That's exactly, of course, what we're doing here. The law and justice should be blind. It should be, irregardless of if you're a young Black man, a rich white woman, old, young, rich, poor, North Missouri, South Missouri, St. Louis, whatever. It should protect all of us equally. This bill does exactly that. And then finally, as you mentioned, all the states that have done this, that's my common response. When I have an idiot, and let's just be honest, there's more than a handful in Jeff City right now. There's a lot of floors. There's a lot of potential for a lot of idiots. That's my response at the end of the day for when they won't listen to reason is all of the rest of these states that have done this have seen no problem. So how could it happen in all these states? And all of a sudden in Missouri, it's going to lead to chaos. Jared, here is a screenshot of the article. This is currently published by NCLS, which is a major, a national publication that tracks state, chambers. This is the current list. These are all the states. As you can see right here, it says that have replaced the old reasonable person standard, which placed the burden on the defendant to show their actions were reasonable, with a presumption of reasonableness or presumption of fear standard, which shifts the burden of proof to the prosecutor to prove a negative. This list, very obviously, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Wisconsin, and Wyoming, which was a bill that I passed back in 2018 with Wyoming gun owners. So it is not up for discussion what this bill does. All these states, and these are major population states, Florida, Pennsylvania, California.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous. The idea that we're going to somehow harm Missouri. So guys, as always, the arguments against these pro-gun bills are always ridiculous. We've established that here again today. The question is, how much pressure do they get from you guys. Jared can't directly lobby, more is the pity, for the next 2 years. I can, and I am. But guys, what really counts is the phone calls they get from you. It's your phone calls, it's your emails from their district that, get them on board to do the right thing. So make those phone calls happen. We have a link here beneath the video, which gives you guys a pre-written email, and it goes right to your lawmakers. Jimmy Pella says, where must we apply pressure to get the bill to the right committee or assigned to committee? So, Jimmy, it's kind of a weird deal. Jared, you can explain the slot system right now and this whole 2 bills per committee program. How does that work right now? This is kind of a new thing.
It is. Honestly, it's a mess because what the speaker, Dean Plocker, has decided to do is each committee only gets he's only allowing 2 bills to come out of each committee. And so that's going to be a problem. We're going to have huge omnibus bills. We're going to have to put this bill likely on another vehicle because it's probably not going to come out. And frankly, I have a concern that he's going to even send it to committee. So I think we need to contact him to make sure that it's going to the right committee. The Gen Laws Committee, I think, is the one that we requested, it to go to, is what been requested. So, we've got to make sure that we're putting pressure on him, but also the Gen Laws chair, and then the representatives. That's what we're focused on right now, is getting that co-sponsor list together to make sure that leadership sees, okay, we really do have a need for this, or a desire in our caucus for this. And so right now, the push is for you guys to contact your legislators, let them know that you want to see this bill done. And not only that, but they need to co-sponsor it. They need to prove that they're pro Second Amendment, that they want to protect gun owners in Missouri.
Well, I think the gun owner, I don't think we all know that the gun owner community has spent a lot of time proving to lawmakers in Jeff City that we are the biggest players on the block these days when it comes to primaries. That was sent loud and clear in state Senate primaries, in state House primaries. Ask people like Greidens, ask Randy Railsback, ask a bunch of these, ask Bill White, former Senator Bill White. If you won't fight for gun rights, gun owners will not fight for you. That's at a minimum. But lately, what we've seen is if you won't fight for gun rights, gun owners will destroy your careers. We are done waiting around for a bunch of kind of haphazard, sometimes pro-gun, sometimes not pro-gun lawmakers decide to find their spine. So there was a day, Jared, back in the day when you really couldn't go after a Republican here in Missouri because he wasn't as bad as the Democrat. At least the Democrats, they're all anti-gun, and for the most part, that's true. But at least they're a Republican. Well, those days are gone here in Missouri. The appetite for freedom is relentless thanks to the work of the Missouri Firearms Coalition. So if you're a lawmaker telling yourself, well, I'm a Republican, so what are they going to do to me? Like I said, just ask around. Ask around. Ask your colleagues what happened to all their. Ask about Kathy Swan. Ask about Jack Bondon. Ask about David Cole. Ask about Bill White. Ask about Railsback. Ask about Eric Greitens. And you'll find out. You'll find out that if you won't fight for gun owners, they will not only fight for you, they will actively look to replace you in the primaries. Frankly, Jared, it's our most wonderful time of year. I mean, Christmas is nice, but the August primary is where we find our most excitement here as gun rights activists in Missouri. So, guys, that's where things are. This is a major bill for us right now this session. We're gaining co-sponsors quickly right now in both chambers, in the House in particular. But make your calls, send your emails, make sure everyone knows this is a priority for me this session. Jared, we have more videos to cut today, so we're going to bounce, guys. Some cool updates on Attorney General Bailey coming up with us very shortly on where he stands on SAPO law. You guys have been asking. We have updates for you guys on that. But for today, that's all we have time for. Fire off your emails, guys. Make your voice heard. Make sure these guys know you expect action right now this session. Take care.